Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I was saying before, if you're just popping in, I am a Blab virgin. This is live, obviously, and I have pretty much zero filter. So you're in for a treat right there. And then I have the lovely Frank Bria joining me, who is a friend, a colleague, and we just have a lot of fun together.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And his expertise is in helping people scale their business. And Frank and I have had conversations about, this back and forth many a times.
Yes.
And it's about the fact that there's no one way to do things, but if what you're doing is not working as well as it should or could work better, you got to find some other alternatives.
Yep.
So that's what Frank is going to share with us. And we're just going to kind of talk about it, give your opinion, any things that you've done that have worked for you, things that possibly could use some improvement and you want to, ask about it. We're not here to sell. We're really just here to have a conversation about it. This is a topic that, how to sell high ticket items is a topic that there's no shortage of information on that, yes. Right? The thing is, what information is the information that you should be listening to and that works for you?
Right. Yeah. The thing is that a lot of people feel like selling something that's expensive is super hard, but it's just different. It's not hard. I mean, actually, I think that you have to do a certain amount of work to sell something for $19, right? You have to build a foundation. You have to build credibility. Someone's going to take out their wallet and give you $19. You have to do something. Now, granted, if you're going to sell something for $19,000, you're not going to do it as quickly, but you still have to do all that work, right?
Absolutely.
It's just different.
It's totally different. And, it's funny you say that because we're into that like instant gratification world, right? So I get a little crazy, even me, because it's like, okay, next, right? So sometimes you just want to pounce, and I use that term loosely, but you're sort of apt to be, we know what we do is great. We know we're great at it. We know we've mastered our skill.
Yeah. And
sometimes that other person, it takes them a while.
Yeah. It
to
does.
know that.
But and the thing is that again to that instant gratification, I think some people have the absolute wrong metrics they're measuring for their success. Like every time I go on to Facebook or Twitter or something and see some entrepreneur post a picture of their PayPal account with all of these like $7 things coming in, and they're like, woohoo, $7, $7. I'm like, I just kind of feel bad. Is that horrible?
Let me help you add some zeros to that.
I know.
Right?
I mean, I know they're really excited, and I don't want to burst that bubble because they're getting some traction and they're selling stuff for the first time. But I kind of feel bad because I feel like they've been taken down this path. Angelique Ruers, right?
Of course,
she's a mutual friend of ours. She uses this phrase, which I absolutely love. She calls it the internet marketing Wonkamobile.
I did just read one of her sales pages. She said, you don't need a Willy Wonka mobile.
I'm like, it's so funny because she did this. I did an interview with her a couple of months ago, and she explained so beautifully what she meant by that. She's like, there is Willy Wonka, he's sitting it on, and he's like, all right, we're ready to open this baby up. And they pull all the stuff in, and they pull the lever, and then it goes chug, 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 chug.
Right, exactly. And you're kind of like looking at your watch and the calendar and like your bank account.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you're like, why isn't this kind of working, So, there's really three symptoms I tell people to look for in their business that tells them they need to change their business model. Number one, if you have hit a revenue barrier and you can't get past it, right? So I've always made $3,000 a month. I've always made $10,000 a month. I've always made $50,000 a month. I don't care what the number is, but if you can't seem to get past it, it's time to change something, right?
Right.
The second thing is if you find that you have this feast or famine cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of months are great. You're like, yeah, it's great being an entrepreneur. I love it. It's awesome. And then a couple months later, you're dragging going, I think I'm going to go get a job, you know?
Yeah, it's the bipolarness of being an entrepreneur.
And you know,
we're all that way.
We're all a little bipolar anyway, but if your revenue is bipolar, that's a problem, right?
That's a problem.
So that means something needs to change. Oh, the third thing is, even if you have a successful business by all financial metrics, you find that you have no life, then something needs to change. Those are the three things I tell people to look for.
Yeah. And, you know, I want to make something clear, because we are not coming in here saying you're going to go from 0 to, you know, 7 figures. Like, that's why Frank just said, those are the 3 signs to look for to know whether this makes sense for you to go and begin to look at the different steps to take to get to this.
Yeah,
it's a process.
That's so important, Francine. I'm going to give you some props, some hands up there, some Blab props. Clicking on the little hands. Get hands for that.
Yay, thank you.
No, it's true, because I think people have just expectations. There are a lot of people who are out there going, oh, it's like instant success overnight. And those people piss me off, because there's nothing further from the truth. Who are really successful, have had lots of bumps in the road, lots of failures. They don't talk about them. And even when we do talk about them, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember that one failure I had way back.
Right. Oh, I know. I want to put a hidden camera in some of these people's rooms and watch it go. And that's a good point to make, because I think that whether, like you said, whether we're selling a $19 item, whether we're selling a $19,000 item, even if you have a process in place, even if you have a plan, you're going to hit bumps.
Oh, yeah.
That's just a big part of it.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the part that I think, in order for us to move forward as entrepreneurs, don't you think that we have to find a way, and I don't know what that way is, but we have to find that way inside ourselves to be able to get up, brush ourselves off, and move the heck on. And if you want to wallow, and I do that, there are times I'm wallowing for a few hours. Totally. I'll go get my little manicure, pedicure, whatever. That's what I do. Other people do different things.
Yeah.
You know, smack my husband around a couple
No manicure, sorry.
Right. No manicures. Yeah. You know, kick a chair, whatever you got to do. But that's just part of it. And you got to learn to go with it.
And I think it's two things. Number one, right? You've got to have, in fact, I was just having a conversation with an entrepreneur yesterday, went to lunch. He was telling me about his business, where he was. He's got that swing, that up and down, right? He'll have $20,000 months, and then he'll have $2,000 months. And then, you know, he can't live on $2,000, obviously. So he needs to figure out what to do. And as we were talking, I asked him a question, and I said, do you wake up in the morning with this drive to build your business? Like, is that deep in you? Do you have that drive?
Yeah.
And he said, no. And I'm like,
right?
Then you should go get a job. Like, if you don't have that, it's not going to work, because that, Francine, is exactly what you talked about. That's what gets you through those down periods. Mm-hmm. But the second thing is, you actually have to get through the down periods. I think a lot of people, there's a lot of motivational stuff out on the internet, right? You can watch all sorts of great YouTube videos. And people go, get charged up. But you actually have to do something, right? You can't just get excited. You have to change something. If something is broken in your revenue stream, you have to fix it, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And one thing I think is interesting is, people aren't willing to make the changes necessary to fix it. They'll wallow, they'll get themselves out of it, but then they'll be in the same place tomorrow, right?
The status quo, right?
Yeah.
People who just live with that, but will biatch about all those things. See, I'm being good. I didn't use vulgarity. About all those things that make them crazy. Yeah. And that makes me crazy.
Yeah, totally.
And that's, my prospects are like that. Many of them, it's the status quo.
Yeah.
You know, to change is more of a risk than to sit there and do nothing and accept the nonsense that's causing them to be the way they are. Yeah. Do you find a lot?
Yeah. In fact, I ask specifically this question before I take on a new client at all. I tell them, if you're not willing to make change, we're not going to work together. I don't care how much money you're interested in paying me, because nothing I'm going to tell you is going to work. So I say very specifically,
I love it.
You've got to be willing to change. You've got to be willing to follow a proven process and change. And if not, let's just call it here. Happy to be friends and keep track of what's going on in your life, but don't hire me because it's a waste of your time and money, if you're not going to do it. But totally. It's more than a mindset thing, I think, for people.
Oh, because, absolutely.
I like to use this analogy of a rocket ship because, starting a business is like launching a rocket into space, right? And so you have this rocket with all these stages and fuel and everything, and you launch it into space. And then you get into orbit, like which you've got some success and things are going okay, and you're in orbit. Well, guess what the rocket does? It jettisons all of those other pieces that got it up there. And I think we sometimes as entrepreneurs, we're afraid to jettison those pieces. There are parts of what we do, and this is why I'm so passionate about talking about scale. There's some parts of what we do as business owners to launch our business that we have to stop doing or change in order to stay in business. For example, being the one hat wearer, like I do everything, like that's got to eventually change,
Yeah. Oh, somebody's loving you. They're giving you
that's awesome.
kudos to that.
On the hands.
But you're absolutely right. And it's interesting you say that because one of the things that the way that I look at my business, I know it's the way you look at your business, is that, again, as I said, there's no shortage of experts in the marketing and sales training arena.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And it's always, this is what I did to go from 0 to 12,000 figures overnight.
Right.
I won't go any further.
Right.
Now, the other thing is that some people do things that it worked for them, but it may not work for you.
That's right.
So the beauty of what I love of what you and I do is that the systematic approach that we use is that the no one way to do thing, as I said, but it's also something you can custom craft to your personality. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important that you talk about the system, because I think a lot of people get caught in this, right? I mean, everybody, I think, knows somebody who's really good at something, but cannot possibly teach it to somebody else, right? Like, I don't care what it is. It's whether it's playing tennis or if it's golf or if it's business or, knitting. I don't care what it is that you do. Like, there are people who are really good at it, but just can't teach it. And I think that it's a function of not just were you successful in completing a task, but were you successful in multiple different scenarios where you could distill it down, right? And not everybody is able to do that or has had that experience. And so, for example, you mentioned you and I work together, obviously, in the Book Yourself Solid system. That's a system that has been applied over and over and over and over again, right? When I teach people how to scale their businesses, I'm doing that because I helped corporations on 4 different continents do the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. And so I've been able to distill it down. It's not just hey, I was successful. So when you're looking for people, experts out there, you want to look for a system. And I tell people, because, there's 7 trillion coaches in the world, which is 10 times more people than there are on the planet, I guess, but or 1,000 times more. But it seems like everyone hangs a shingle up and says they're a coach. The problem is that you might connect with someone individually, right? You may have a connection, but if they don't have intellectual property to share with you, it's going to be a problem. And so let's flip that around. If you're building a business, I don't care what kind of a services business it is, you've got to have your own intellectual property and system. Correct. Because you're going to have to productize it. Not only is it make it easier for you to sell, but you've got to productize it eventually as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, you brought up a good point about, the system part of it and that everything we do has a system to it. I mean, really, when you think about it, anything you do that does not have a process to it, can I tell you how many times I try to find my my codes for things because I have no system.
Right.
I'm like in this, I'll use this. I'll remember I did this because that was the day I got my hair cut, right? You don't, okay? I drive my husband crazy. He's like, get a notebook and write it down. I have no idea where they are. So everything you do needs a process. Some need a greater process than others.
Every time I tell myself I like put something down into it like a new place where I've never put it before, and I go, I'll remember that I've put this in a new place.
No.
And I never see it again.
My kids' Christmas gifts, they usually get some in July because I hide them so well that I forget where in December, and when I'm cleaning out, I find them in July. Here you go.
Yeah, I mean, when our kids were little and we used to do Easter egg hunts, 2 weeks later, not
crazy.
Good.
You need to have it, and we've got people. Guys, please ask us questions. And again, if you're new to this, I said I'm new to it, so I think if you do /Q, I'll know it's a question. So we have Bill saying he did a blab the other day that relates to the systems and processes, and his was called "Eating What You Kill is Killing Your Business." Good one. And Art is saying, process. If it can't be measured, it cannot be managed.
I'm a fan
you got
of that.
Right?
Measure.
And Frank had spoken about, the measuring part of it. And, one of the things that I think you need to think about, and we're not here to turn anybody off to being an entrepreneur, obviously. We love it. We do it. We want you to do it. But we also want you to do it where you're not stressed out, you've got peace of mind, and you're able to enjoy life with it. So, one of the things is that you have to look at your business as a means of financials. Whether or not, I'm not telling you to do it for the money, but what I'm saying is that needs to be your measurement that you base everything off of. So, when Frank's saying about the high ticket items, if you want to do $50,000 and you're trying to sell something at $5,000 and you aren't able to do that with the time you have, then you need to scale your business and either do it online, or is it time to double your prices, work with less clients, make the same amount or more money.
Right.
Correct?
And I love what you say about money being the metric that we measure the value we're creating by, right?
Because money hungry.
Yeah. It's not about the money. It's that the money measures what we're doing and the impact that we're making. And it does it better than anything else. I don't care what metric you choose. I don't care if it's likes on Facebook or followers on Twitter, or our friend and colleague, Matthew Kimberly, who calls it Pinstagram derisively.
We have to get him on here. We're going to get him on here next.
He's a lot of fun on video.
We'll get him on.
Actually, I interviewed him the other day, or a couple months back, for something. And he, whatever shirt he was wearing, the buttons kept popping off.
So that wasn't planned. Come on.
We just kept calling it the constant wardrobe malfunction.
He was having a wrench.
Yeah.
Because he's so bulky. I mean,
I know. It's like, why are you popping out of your shirt? You're like a stick.
I mean, you stand him sideways.
I get that.
He's like a zipper sideways,
But the thing is that it doesn't matter if people are liking your Facebook page or following you on Twitter. That is a means to an end, and the end is that they pay you for something, because the only thing that all of us humans can show that you're delivering value to me on is to give you money. In other words, Francine, you are helping me with something. You're delivering value to me, and I'm willing to pay you for it. Mm-hmm. That's the only measurement that matters in all of that. Not that it's the only thing that's important, but it's the only metric we can all universally count on that helps us understand if we're doing something meaningful.
And don't you find, and we have Rocco Steady is saying he's loving this, and you can't buy food with likes. Hey, I'm with you, buddy. Absolutely.
Yeah, Chris Brogan says, my bank doesn't take Facebook likes.
Right, exactly. And NYU doesn't take Facebook likes. That's where my son goes, right? I got a big ticket there.
We both have kids in college.
Yeah, we both have kids. Right. They don't take that.
No,
I'm bringing Rocco Steady. He has a question, my friend.
Awesome.
So we are going to bring him on. Rock on. Hey, Rocco Steady, you were on yesterday. On the Blab with Lou Bortone.
Yeah. I'm always on.
Yeah. What's cooking?
I'm a blabaholic.
Oh, you need to go to, what's it called? I don't know.
Blab Anonymous or something?
Blab Anonymous. Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so a little bit about myself. I'm an inspirational hip hop artist. I believe in the power of words. You can either destroy or build with words. I choose to build. I started a business called Gift Wrapper, where I create custom theme songs for businesses, organizations, individuals, events, and festivals. I take personal development and I take your mission and your vision and I translate it into song, which immortalizes your company. I've had the fortunate opportunity to work with Samsung Mobile, Wells Fargo, Safe Auto. I made the City of Houston's theme song. So this is my question to y'all. Since this is high ticket items, people thought I was crazy when 2 years ago I sold my album at $35 each. And I sold over 5,000 records in 2.5 years. And people were like, you're crazy. You can't even buy Madonna's album for $5.99 at Target. And I was like, but I feel like I'm worth $35. Okay. So here's my question. Since Frank, you scale things to 7 figures. Okay. So I'm like, okay, how do I scale myself? This is my dilemma that I face. Yeah. I'm facing the cusp dilemma where it's a good problem to have. There's good problems to have. So here's my problem. I have 10,000 fans that I've actually connected with. I've actually touched and met. I've made 5,000 phone calls in the last 2 years. I've sold over 5,000 records. Now, these are people that believe in my cause, that are actually connected with me on a very deep foundation as far as supporting me because they want to see me grow and rise, and they see the value in what I present for music and for the community, especially here in Houston, Texas. So what I'm facing is I have to make these phone calls to make these sales. It's not to the point where I can just promote it and then people will like, oh my God, I got to go buy Rocco's album and give him $35. It's more like, hey, what's up, Frank? How you been, man? This is what I'm up to 2016. Would you like to support me? Can I count on your support? And this is where your money's going to go towards for a campaign to promote multiculturalism and positivity in the city. So that's why people support me. It's more like a brand recognition as the spokesperson for the city and their support in the culture. So I'm making 5,000 phone calls and it's exhausting,
Totally.
And I mean, I could do it.
But that's crazy. Let me ask you a couple of questions, though. So are these outbound? Like, in other words, you have a list of your fans and basically you're just making outbound phone calls to them?
Yes.
Okay. And when you make a call, the result is what, $35 or more?
No, it's $35. And then the people that are making, 6 figures or more, they're usually, I've gotten, $150. I've gotten $2,000. I've gotten $5,000. The most I've ever received was $10,000 from somebody that wants to just support me. But I charge people $35. Say, look, this is the cost. It's $35, and it's usually it's a 75% conversion rate. The majority,
sure,
it's a very high conversion.
I'll tell you why it's a high conversion rate. There's 2 reasons. Number one, you have done a very good job from just what I can hear, being very clear about the value proposition that you're creating and the cause you're creating, right? So people are going to get on board with that. That means they're going to connect with you. Number 2, because the amount of effort that you're putting into a sale, this is both a compliment and a slap upside the head from me, a loving slap upside the head. This is you are putting so much energy into $35. That's why you have a high conversion rate. The kind of effort that you're putting out there to do a direct phone call to get $35, it's just not proportionate to the value that you're getting back. Let me a couple of things. First of all, I think it's very difficult to scale an outbound sales operation that is getting $35 a pop. There is going to have to be some automation of that process. Okay, whether that's to do a webinar and get a bunch of people in and have them pay you that $35 all at once. That's one way to do it. Another way would be to automate the communication via email or video or whatever, so that you're building that relationship and getting people in. It really doesn't take that much to get people to give you $35. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, I've paid way more for way less in the past. So that's something that I would think about. Now, That's going to be that's one way to scale that, right? Automating that piece. It is very difficult to build a business on that. You in order to get, let's say, get to 7 figures, let's say that's your goal. I mean, just run the numbers. I mean, think about how many people that you have to sell at $35 to get to $1 million. That's a lot of people, right?
Well, there's also different streams of income.
I'm yeah, absolutely. And you're doing, you know, custom work, and you're writing songs for people, and obviously that's much more expensive. But I want to plant an idea in your head that maybe you've never thought about.
Okay.
You're building a community of fans who probably want to engage with you in a personal level, and for them to personally experience some kind of transformation from you. You could be building a community of those folks who are willing to pay you a whole heck of a lot more to engage with you over a year, to have you help them create that transformation for themselves, whether that is through music, whether that is you just performing your music for them as part of a broader, you know, let's achieve some big objective, or maybe you're teaching other people how to do what you already know how to do. But there is a subset of that fan base that is probably willing to fork out $25,000 or more to you to engage with you over the course of a year. Take them to Hawaii or something for a couple of days, a couple of times a year, or whatever. But usually when you've created a fan base like that, people pay for access. And I bet there's a significant portion of that audience that wants access to you.
That's a great idea.
How do you fish for that particular client?
Well, what you do is, these you have their email addresses. You communicate with them via email.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kick it out there. You basically, what you do is you launch a kind of a pilot. So the first time I ever launched a high ticket program where people were going to be working with me for the course of a year, I did 2 things. I created a webinar where I basically said, first of all, you have to be very clear about what that transformation is in your head, right? You want to say, what am I going to do for people that's going to help them? I like to say people buy things for one of 4 reasons. They want to make money, they want to save money, they want to stay out of jail, or they want a better life. That's it. Those 4, that's it. So you have to pick which one of those 4 you're enacting in people's lives. And if it's better life, then you need to be very clear about what that life looks like at the end of the year. Articulate it. Say, hey, I want to get on the phone with, 10 people who are interested in working over the next year for something like this. We're totally creating this from scratch, just letting you know, it's a total test. But if you're willing to, and obviously there's going to be an investment associated with this. And you might even say, this is going to be a low 5-figure investment to be engaged with this. But I want to talk to 10 people who would love to kick around that idea with me and send it out there to people. But you probably want to precede that with some, webinar communication that allows people to capture the vision of what you are trying to create.
Right. Okay.
Sound good? Well, we got you some good ideas. Frank will say, Frank, just say how, if someone wants more Frank Bria, and God knows we all do, in case people have to jump off, we're still staying on, so don't anybody go anywhere. But if you need to jump off, Frank, how can they find you?
FrankBria.com is my website, and you can contact me there, or my email is frank@frankbria.com. It's real complicated.
Perfect. And follow Frank. Up on your screen, you'll see where you can follow him on Twitter. Because as Frank said, this is a process. This isn't something that we're going to solve problems today, but some of those ideas that he gave you, Rocco, I think are fantabulous. So
awesome.
See what you can do with that, and Frank is the guy to help implement. Okay?
Well, thank you so much. All right, y'all.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open up your spot. Stay with us. David, I'm going to open up your spot too, okay? But stay with us. Okay. All right, so Frank, I have a question for you, because one of the things when we so sort of talked about the instant gratification thing, and we know that that's not realistic, right? I would love for people to become aware of me, pick up the phone and say, I want to hire you for your $10,000 package, but in reality, that doesn't happen.
Not often, no.
Tell me, what can we do when we create that awareness? Someone sees us, they like us, they have to trust us more. They want to know more about us. How do we keep that sales cycle alive and kicking?
Yeah. So this is where selling high ticket items is very different from selling low ticket items. Like, so oftentimes when we talk about a sales cycle in the Book Yourself Solid vernacular, some people call it a sales funnel, whatever it is, whatever term you use that describes this keeping in touch strategy. A lot of times what people think is that all I need to do is to just keep poking people. Like, keep in touch. I'm going to send an email out I'm going to give you my newsletter, and then I'm just going to send an email out to you. And it literally is like, I mean, what would it be like if somebody was next to you and literally all they were doing is like, poke.
Right. Like the kid you used to go to school with.
Yeah, right. So what the thing that's missing, especially, and you know what, you can sell low ticket stuff that way. It's not that big of a deal because the sales cycle is actually very quick.
Yes.
So all you have to do is stay in front of their face. And then when they are ready to make a decision, they make a decision quickly. That's not true with high ticket stuff. The decision process is elongated. And so what it means is it's not good enough to just poke people. You have to be strategic in how you're keeping in touch. So the way that I like to describe this is it's like going to the mall. Not all prospects are the same. The mindset, where we are in our head when we're thinking about buying something, is not the same all the time. It changes over time.
Right.
So think about if you go to the mall, right? If you walk into the mall and you're standing outside of a store you've never seen before, and you're trying to make a determination as to whether or not you should step inside the store, right? You are at this stage what I like to call a loiterer. Okay, you're loitering outside the store, right?
True.
I'm not sure if it's going to be worth my time to engage with you yet or not, because you haven't made a decision as to whether or not to come into my store. But the only thing that I have to offer you are my window displays and the title of the store. And I've got to very quickly give some kind of an indication of what I'm about, right?
Now, we're talking like less than 10 seconds with that, right? Okay, just want to clarify.
You've got to be honest. Like, for example, if a store, like a sporting goods store, would not put perfume in their window in order to attract women into the store. I mean, that would be insane, right?
Right.
Because then you would get in the store and be like, there's no perfume here.
What are they selling me? Correct.
I mean, sweat is not perfume. So we have to be very clear and honest, and like, it's in or out. Like, if you're not into sporting goods, you're not going to come into the store. And I'm not going to get my feelings hurt over it because I sell sporting goods.
Right.
So that's a loiterer. Now, if that quick little 10 seconds has attracted somebody, then you're going to step into the store. At this stage, you're not ready to buy anything yet. You've just found the store. Like, you don't even know what's in here, right? So what happens? A salesperson runs up to you immediately, and what do they say? Can I help you, right? And what do we all say in return? We go, no, thanks, I'm just looking. So at this stage, I call you a looker. You're somebody who clearly has some preference to what the store is about, but you don't know what you want yet. And the reason we don't want to engage with a salesperson at this stage is because we don't have anything to say. They're going to ask us all sorts of questions we don't have answers to, like, what is it you're looking for? What is it you need? Have you thought about the battery-free version? Like, we don't even know what you're talking about yet, right?
Right,
so
exactly.
We don't want to engage with a salesperson. So we have to basically we have to move on past that, right? So, but what the store does in order to get you to a place where you want to talk to a salesperson is they have displays. So what we need to do is the same thing. We give a picture of what it's like for you to have our product or service. So it's like I was talking to the gentleman before. You have to paint a picture of what life is like after you've worked with me for a year. What's that going to look like for you? Stores don't, like furniture stores, don't take the beds and stack them up against the wall. They lay them out. They put the bedspreads on. They've got dressers and cabinets and pillows and tons of pillows. Lots and lots of pillows. I don't know what the thing is with pillows, but lots of pillows so that you can look at that and go, oh my gosh, this is what this would look like in my room. That's what we have to do with our our prospects as well. At that stage, then a light kind of goes on in their head and they go, oh, I need that. Right? At this stage, really good retail salespeople are looking for visual cues, right? For example, somebody who's just looking is wandering the aisles aimlessly. When they suddenly that light goes on, what do? They double back. They start taking things off the shelf. They start reading labels, right? These are behavioral cues that a really good retail salesperson reads and then goes over and approaches the person at that point. We in our businesses have to find the same kinds of behavioral cues and watch for them, because that's when we know it's time to reach out. If you're going to sell something for $50,000, you're not going to do it via email. You're going to have to talk to someone on the phone, or you're going to have to visit them in person. The question is when. It's at that moment. That's when those behavioral cues become clear, it's time to engage. So it's important that we put a keep in touch strategy together that actually watches, that seeds these behavioral cues and then watches when they show up. Then at that point, the salesperson engages intelligently in the conversation. For example, really good salespeople, if you're looking at like a blouse or something like that, the really good salesperson doesn't come up to you and say, "Can I help you?" They say, "That would look beautiful on you," or "That's our, best seller," or, "We have that in other colors if you're interested." They engage you in the middle of your conversation. It's almost like they're reading your mind. Why? Because they've been following that thread. They're acting on the behavioral cues and doing something with it. So when we pick up the phone and call somebody for the first time, it's not like, "Hey, let me tell you about my," because we want to engage in the middle of the conversation.
Exactly. So I have two things. One is I want to respond to at RD Sales Training. No, we're not necessarily talking about retail sales. We're talking about big ticket items, whether it's a product or a service. Correct. Frank is using the analogy of a salesperson.
Yeah, because it's something we're all familiar with.
Yeah, that's exactly, so we can get it. Yeah. So I have another thing. Do you guys hear an echo from me still? I apologize. I couldn't find my headset. So I apologize if I'm a little echoey for next. Not now. Thank you, William. Okay. So I have someone who wants to come in, and I apologize because I'm going to butcher the name. So when I bring you in, certainly please tell us your name. And then Frank, I want you to tell us about when you're talking about the time of when to have that conversation, just kind of touch base how to really have an effective sales conversation. It means call in again. Who was just calling in, I apologize. Tell us that really, what's the answer to having an effective sales conversation? I know it's not the tactics, so you tell us.
Yeah. So I think that especially for higher ticket services, an effective sales conversation is one in which you establish the gap between where they are now and where they want to be. So if we've done our job correctly and we've painted this picture of what it's like in the future, right, to have something, we want to paint that. We want to be very clear about that gap. We ask people, what does that look like for you? What would it be like to have that experience? What would it mean? How would it change your life? How would it change your business? We ask all sorts of questions because we want our prospect there. We want them to future cast into where they would be. Why? Because we kind of want them to get a little emotionally addicted to it. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but
no, you're right. And you know what? I don't look at it as, manipulative. No. Manipulative is like forcing someone to think differently. Totally. But when you're just as a sales person and you are there asking people why, like seriously, the one question that you can ask anyone is why. When they tell you what they want. So if someone's calling you and saying, "I need to scale my business," why? Like you said, right? Why, right? Exactly. That is key. So, when you think about what we do, we can make more money. Yeah, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. But what's the real reason that's going to get someone to whip out the credit card? Again, not in a manipulative way, but to get them off the status quo. Yeah. Do you not find that that's the ticket? No pun intended.
Absolutely.
Getting people off that.
I think one thing that's really important here is that, because you bring up manipulation. Manipulation is getting someone to do something they don't want to do. Selling is helping facilitate someone getting what they want. true selling. So if you, if I'm having this conversation with you and I'm saying, hey, this is what you want, right? This is in the end, like, how would that mean? And you can tell, oh my gosh, yes, that's exactly what I want. I want that result. I want that outcome. And you can see that they're in it. The question I love to ask people, because it startles them a bit, is, so why don't you have it? Like, why don't you have it? What's keeping you from having that? Because what that does is now I'm in this like mental, oh, this is so awesome, I want this. And you kind of come back to today and you have to think about it and you go, oh, wow, yeah, it is my fundamental responsibility to create that outcome. How come I haven't done it before? Maybe I need help. And it opens up this conversation of, okay, well, let me tell you the 2 or 3 reasons why I think I'm not pulling it off. And now you're doing needs analysis. Now you're into a very formal needs analysis and you're able to do it. Now, a lot of this sounds like squishy strategy session, life coaching stuff. But I do this with corporations. I've done this with CEOs of major Fortune 500 corporations. The CEO tells me, we want to be this, we want to do that. And I ask him, great, tell me what that looks like. Where do you invest? Where do you go from there? What's your next step after that? And he gets all excited about these plans. And then I say, so why haven't you done it, Bob? Yeah. Like, why haven't you pulled it off? Right. And now we're having a real conversation. I think that's really critical. But it's like you said, you've got to have the trust and credibility built up before you can have that conversation.
Yes. It's really about, like Frank is saying, it's not just about having a sales conversation, which is why really, the high ticket items, the low ticket items, going from creating awareness with your marketing to an immediate sales conversation is typically not going to get you the results you want.
Yeah.
So like Frank is saying, it's that, and sometimes too much nurturing is not a good thing either. And Frank will agree with me on that. At some point, you've got to ask for the sale, but it's about the listening skills from your questions that you ask that are going to get you to know whether or not it's a conversation you need to have. So It's interesting because, if you have a conversation, and I'll have conversations with people and, the why obviously will come up and they don't even know. They can't even articulate it.
No, right.
So sometimes that just means they're not ready.
It could very well be. And
right?
I think this is the biggest mistake. I don't care if you're a 20-year sales veteran. I think the biggest mistake that people make in the sales process is hanging on to prospects too long because you don't want to give up. They're not ready to move and they don't want to give up. And so I tell people one big thing that they are missing through their sales process when that's the issue is that sales is not one big decision. It's not, I'm going to buy your stuff. It's not one decision. It's a series of smaller decisions. And the decisions have to come from the prospect. So I describe getting to a high ticket sale as understanding a series of commitments that a prospect makes and keeps. For example, really simple. I'm going to download and read your lead magnet. Awesome. If you don't read the lead magnet, you haven't kept that commitment. I'm probably not going to engage with you because it's not interesting enough to you to read. Why in the world would I want to waste my time on a phone call with you? Exactly. If you say I'm going to attend a webinar and you don't show up, then I say I'm probably not going to engage with you further until you actually keep that commitment. Now, that's not to say we throw them out of the bucket. But what it does say is we go, okay, listen, you're not ready to make this commitment yet. That's cool. You're not ready for it yet. So I'm going to keep you at this level until you are ready to make that commitment. And when you are, then we'll go to the next level. So when we're in a sales process, especially when we've had an on-site meeting and maybe a proposal and all sorts of other things, I ask my prospect to make a commitment to me. We're going to talk next Wednesday about this. Yes. And if they don't, then that tells me something, right? And I need to do something with that information. And a lot of times we as salespeople, we get all hung up like, oh, no, they didn't make the meeting. Oh, well, they may not be ready to move. That's fine.
Exactly.
I'm going to give them an opportunity to remake the commitment, but I'm not going to push along like as if it never happened, No. Okay, well, I know we didn't make the meeting to talk about the proposal, but let me send you the invoice anyway. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right. Hey, let's just go ahead. It's interesting because I was laughing, and I was actually going to post this in the mentoring program. I'm a slow learner. Okay. So we know that. And I've realized that I should have been approaching prospects the way I do my relationships at home, which is my husband and children are the winners. I'm the prize. And I seriously think that it is a game changer when you are looking at your prospects that way. And I don't mean that in a negative or a condescending manner at all.
No.
But as entrepreneurs, we're competitive.
Totally.
And sometimes the win, we can get caught up in that.
Yeah, that's right.
Even if your book's solid, right? Nobody likes to lose. I don't care what you're doing. Right. You don't like to lose. So as you said, if we do not get that, we look at it as us.
Right. And,
and it's, maybe it is, and maybe we can do something differently, but typically it's not.
No, you're absolutely right. And that is critical, because what that means is if we are the expert, if we are the prize, as you like, and I love that way of describing it, then, we have to have that. If we don't have that mindset, no one's going to hire us for anything. Like, why would I hire somebody who doesn't think enough about their own skill set? And that is regardless of whether or not the person is a good prospect for you or not. So again, if they're not going to be good for you, if they're not an ideal client, if they don't cross your, as we like to say, red velvet rope, right?
Yes.
Then we shouldn't even be pushing it, and we shouldn't feel bad that that's the case. Now, a lot of new entrepreneurs, a lot of times what I'll tell them to do is an exercise, especially when they have trouble with this mindset of I'm the prize. I have them do something crazy. I say, get on a sales call and then tell the prospect that, thank you very much, but I don't think it's a good idea that we work together. And people are like, why would I do that? I'm like, do it once. Do it once. It will change your life. It will change your life to hear how the prospect reacts to that. And if you go in with this mindset as, I'm not making this sale, I'm just doing this as an exercise, then you can kind of get rid of some of that baggage that you have about, I need the money, blah, 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 blah. But I'm like, do a sales call, and maybe it's with someone you already know is not a good prospect. Have a sales call, and at the end of the sales call, go, this has been great. I hope I've given you some helpful information, but I don't think I'm the right person to help you with this. You're not really an ideal client of mine. And I'll tell you, the people who have done that, they come back and go, oh my gosh, they begged to work with me. They tried to talk me into working with them. Like, it is a game changer.
It's liberating. It's liberating. And as Frank said, sometimes you know, even if they're begging to work with you, they're not ideal. You obviously don't want to work with them.
Right.
But the way that I learned that was when I was in real estate. And, I joke, but really, like, my target market was anyone who lived in a house or could live in a house. Mm-hmm. And in the heyday, as long as you were breathing, fog this mirror, and sometimes that, as long as you can hold their hand to sign the mortgage papers, then you need to be breathing. It was that bad.
Right.
So, like, just starting, I was working with anybody and everybody, and I seriously, I don't look good in orange or stripes. So I knew if I didn't get rid of some people, I was going to be in jail for hurting someone. And I got to tell you, when it was not easy, because a lot of people had invested a lot of time in, but when I did that, it was like, everything, my world freaking changed.
And you know what? It's actually a service to them. I mean, I had this conversation yesterday. I talked to somebody yesterday who I said, listen, based on what you're doing, I don't think I have anything that I can help you with. I mean, do I know how to solve your problem? Yes, absolutely. I could make something up, craft it together, and help you solve your problem. But it's not good for me. I'm not going to, put my heart and soul into it for one person, So it's just not a good match. And you know what? I directed that person to like 3 other things that they could do, which would be better for them. And they looked at me as, oh my gosh, that's like a service. They didn't try to shove something down my throat.
Right. Exactly. I think that more people will give you referrals, even if they didn't work with you, for that reason alone.
That has happened to me. So I can bear witness. That is absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, and people are like, well, have you worked with them? He wasn't right for me, but I got to tell you, you got to talk to the guy.
Yeah.
That trust is already built.
Yep.
Because of that. So it's, about acting with integrity throughout this whole thing.
That's right.
So let me ask you a question about the high ticket items.
Yeah.
So how do you, let's say someone is doing, the trading time for money, they're selling packages, whatever, but they just can't possibly take another client on. So tell me, is your recommendation, tell me like what you're going to look at. Is it looking at what can they automate online? Is it looking at raising the prices? Like, give us just sort of the picture.
So, I mean, it kind of depends on where you are. So that's my favorite answer. It depends. And we'll just end it there. It depends. No, there is I like to call it, there's a hierarchy of services, okay? That as you go up, you're creating more and more value for your customer, and you're charging more and more money, right? You don't jump to the top. Obviously, you don't just land at the top of the ladder. You're going to go up over time. So as you continue to scale your business, you're going to add more and more of these services to what you do. But at the lowest end, okay, is what I call teaching. Teaching is a value. It is a great value, but it has its limitations, right? I mean, if I wanted to become a brain surgeon, I probably couldn't learn by watching a 25 video series course on brain surgery, right? I mean, there are limitations to teaching.
Yes.
But it is a great value, and you can charge money for it. And so people do online courses, which are high ticket items. I mean, there are people who sell online programs for over $1,000, for $5,000, things like that. Depending on the value you create. Of course, you have to have that value proposition in your head. Beyond that, then, people may look for more. They may look for mentoring or accountability, right? So this is where you kind of move beyond the video course and you actually start incorporating pieces of, I'm going to help you through it. I'm going to solve some problems for you. I'm going to help you get unstuck throughout the way. That would be like if I wanted to learn brain surgery by standing behind a brain surgeon and watching him do his work. Again, still limitations, right? It would be the first time, even with mentorship, it would be the first time, right? I don't think anyone would sign up, even if I worked with a brain surgeon for a year by watching him work and having him answer all my questions. Anyone who would like to sign up to have their brain surgery done by me for the very first time after that, raise your hand, right? Not happening.
Even for a discount.
Yeah, that's right. This is a beta. This is beta brain surgery. So we're discounting the price to 20% of the usual.
Exactly right.
Right, exactly. So again, limitations there, right? You can then move up to the next stage where this is what I like to call done for you programs, right? So now I don't want to learn how to do brain surgery. I want someone to do brain surgery on me. Obviously, I'm going to be that's going to be much more expensive, right? Now, I want to pause for a second here and insert something that's kind of interesting about the coaching and the consulting industry that I think is a little funny.
Please do, because everyone, I'm sure, has that question.
So in the coaching industry, let me start with the consult. In the consulting industry, we start off by doing all the grunt work, right? I go off and I prepare a document and I give it back to you. Or I go off and I create this program and I bring it back to you. Like I do all the work. And at the end of the day, if I could just grow up to be an awesome consultant, I'd be doing strategy work and I wouldn't be doing any of that little nickel and dimey stuff, right? In the coaching world, it's exactly the opposite, right? Coaches start off being strategists and talking big games, but actually not doing anything. And at the end of the day, like if they can really charge $25,000, $50,000, then they'll actually do something. I think it's really funny how backwards.
I totally agree. And not everyone may see that, but now that you brought it up, now they'll notice it.
Yeah. But on top, at the very tip top, and that's kind of the idea that I suggested to the gentleman who was on before, at the very tip top, the thing that we as human beings will pay the most amount of money for, because we value it more than anything, are experiences. So forget the brain surgery, right? Maybe I can go into a hospital and get brain surgery. That's great. But what if there was a hospital that I could afford that had the brain surgery, but also had this complete program where it wrapped me in pre-surgical, post-surgical support. They brought in nutrition folks, diet folks who were checking, for neurological function, all this stuff, and wrapped it in an entire experience. That is the ultimate. And so when we think about what it takes to get to a high-ticket program or a high-ticket service, I ask people to think about what kind of experience they can create for people.
Yeah.
How can you wrap what you do into a full experience? Now, not everyone is going to pay for that, okay?
No.
There are going to be the DIY brain surgery people. I'm sorry. They just are, right?
And they're not your clients.
They're not.
So
they're definitely not your
high. Change that.
Exactly. They're not your high ticket ideal clients.
Yeah.
But there are some who want the experience, and if you find them and create the experience, they will join you. They will pay, and they will get the value that you're creating for them.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you say that because, if you're selling a product, it's much easier to get that experience across, right? So fine dining, maybe the food is not that great, but oh my God, the experience that I'm having, right?
Absolutely. I mean, so even products, even products that you wouldn't think of as service could pull this off. Let me just pose a thought experiment. I'm sure there's a lot of people, I'm not one of them, who are Apple fans on this Blab today, right?
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm not an Apple fan, but there are people who are total Apple files, right? My kids are,
Yeah, my whole house except me. Yeah.
How many, and there's tons of Apple fans all over the world. What would happen if Apple rolled out a year-long Apple experience for $100,000, where for a year you would be enveloped in whatever Apple thing that I don't care if they took you to, Hong Kong or to Europe or something, and it would all be Appleized. Do you think people would pay $100,000 for a year-long experience with Apple? Yeah, a lot of them. There'd still be a line. Absolutely. There'd still be sold out things.
They'd wake up at 3 a.m. Absolutely. They'd camp out.
So it doesn't matter what you're doing today. It could be a tactical product. If you have a strong enough brand value and you are building this brand promise, you can pull it off. And I guess Apple did do it.
I was just going to say, I was just reading. Rick is saying that. I don't know, since you and I are not.
Yeah, infinite iPhone upgrades. That's a really good example, right? So basically monthly subscription, you're going to get a new iPhone all the time. That's a really good example because they're staying close to their core. But I mean, even if they did something totally outside their core business of consumer electronics, and they did something crazy like took a whole bunch of Apple fans on a worldwide tour, like on a cruise boat or something, people would be all over that.
Oh my God!
You're on a cruise ship with Apple people, all Apple.
Imagine the geek squad people on a cruise ship. Yeah. So let me ask you a question because you and I have had this conversation about my business, because you know that right now for me, I'm very much face to face.
Yeah.
And you have said, Francine, you're going to burn out sooner or later, and you better come up with some way to scale what you're doing.
I would never. I just want to be very clear. I never underestimate your energy level. You are always one peg higher than I think you could ever possibly be. Yeah.
And I'll work. Yeah. But obviously I know, but right now I love the face-to-face aspect of it. So instead of doing one-to-one, I scaled to sales teams.
Yes.
So of course that has raised my prices and so on and so forth. But the interesting thing about it is I do know that at some point I'm going to need to do something online. So just give us, we only have a few minutes left, just kind of give us the way a picture may look for someone who is selling high ticket coaching consulting services.
Yeah.
And you don't need to be specific on what the services are.
Yeah, just there's a couple models that work. Okay. There's 2 or 3 models that really work, right? One is the team model. Okay. So you've created the authority. You are the authority. People want to do business with you. And so now you bring in people underneath you who you train and continue to do this. You're essentially doing the same thing you've always done. It's just that now you have people working for you. And there's different variants of that, right? You could actually hire them as employees, or you could certify them and they're separate, right? I like to say, on one end of the spectrum, there's the franchise model where you actually franchise people out. They pay a licensing fee, but you control everything. Right. They buy their stuff from you. They buy their documents, their marketing materials. And then on the other end of the spectrum is the wide open spectrum. Like Michael Port is kind of that way, right? Right. It's very much, you license it one time, you get to use the property, and bless you, my children, go forth into the world and make money. It's not that flexible, but there is a spectrum of that, right? So that's one way to do it. Essentially, keep that product or service and make it happen. Another model, however, is a transformative model, and that's where you move from actually providing this one-on-one or even group work and creating the experiential, the experiences, right? And sometimes that's online, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, for example, and I think Peter actually was mentioning Tony Robbins. I mean, Tony Robbins is in person. You get him in person. It's just that you get him with you and 1,000 of your closest friends, in person, right? You can scale that process as well, but you can do it online. You can create an online piece. However, I would say that most people like you and me, I'm the same way, who are really good in that one-on-one personal interaction piece where you like that individual connection. There's always going to be, I think, this element of live associated with, you know what I mean?
Totally agree.
So
totally agree.
There's a really good model where, you build up where there's opportunities for access, live access. People who are fans of people, they want to be able to connect with them individually and personally, right? That's why people go to live concerts, even though you could listen to the music on the radio or on satellite or whatever. Right. You want to see the person, you want to engage with them personally. But then they also have this way of filling in the gap, right? Because anyone who wants Francine every single day. Like, we don't want just Francine like once or twice
a year. Story of my
life. So there's got to be some way to kind of like bridge the gap, right? So that's where the online piece comes in. You create content, you create electronic medium, webinars, etc., other electronic ways to engage with the audience. But I do think that for people who really like the face-to-face, a live component's good. And you don't have to be one-on-one face-to-face. I mean, I prefer groups, small groups. Like I can sit down one-on-one with somebody, but I would rather actually work with 10 people at a time. Because I like to leverage the talents and the resources of different people in the room and get them to kind of create something more than even I can create by myself.
Yeah, and I think that adds to the experience that you mentioned. Some people don't like group things. That if you do, this is an experience that you will love. Sure.
And if you're a perfect client of mine and you're willing to pay enough, I'll work with you one-on-one. But that's
you just got to pay for it.
That hierarchy, because these are the things that I like to do, and you create authority around what you're able to create.
Right, and people say, "What should I price my services at?" Price your services that make sense to where you want to do your business.
Yes.
So if you don't want to do one-on-one, and someone wants to work with you one-on-one, make it a ridiculous price.
Yes.
And if they still do it, and they're an ideal client, then work with them.
I'm going to have a shameless, Francine, if you don't mind, a shameless plug for my book. So I've got a chapter. Please,
I was going to do that before we went. Absolutely.
Chapter in my book, Scale, all about pricing, and it talks about all of the different ways you should be looking at pricing. And the one that you just described is the supply element of pricing. In other words, if I'm selling my time, that supply is limited, and if because I don't really want to do a certain particular activity, it's really, really super limited. So of course you're going to be charging a lot more for that.
Exactly. Put your book down there.
Yeah.
In case somebody wants to go get it.
You can
show
get it.
up.
So, it's on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. But if you go to scalebookoffer.com, you've got links to that, and then there's bonus material. You can download training and stuff like that.
Okay, so that's Scale.
I usually have one hanging out around here.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you have a picture? I'm sorry, I was remiss. My stuff was packed away because I was moving my office and I did not unpack after the holidays yet. But I am so excited. There it is. If you want to know about Scale, and Frank is the guy. I mean, seriously, he's been in the financial arena forever. There we go. We're climbing the ladder. He's worked with the big wigs, gang. So he definitely can help you. go to his website, check out what he's got going on. If you're serious, you're motivated, give him a holler and see if it's a good fit. And Frank, I am so excited. You were my first one.
Yay!
So much. I had so much fun. Will you come back again another time?
I would come back anytime, even just to hang out.
I was going to say maybe we'll do a threesome.
There you go. I mean, great way to migrate from Blab virginity into a threesome. I'm sorry, it's been so clean.
If I'm moving too fast, stop me, right? Hey, business, love, it's the same thing, right?
That's right.
All right, guys, I thank you all. Oh, David says he loves us. Brilliant. Thank you. So
Thanks,
excited.
everyone.
So, gang, because again, I'm new to this, follow us on Twitter at Francine Graglia, at Frank Bria. Subscribe to Short on Sales. I'll be doing these at least twice a month. So I'll get the word out when the next one is. It'll probably be in a couple weeks. I'm not sure yet. I want to see how this one went before I decided. But I love it. I love you guys. So I think I'm going to continue with it. All right.
Awesome.
So if you're short on sales, it's time to do something about it. Call Frank. Bye.
Francine.
Or call me. All right. Bye, guys. Thanks, Frank. Mwah.
Thanks.